Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome back to Meanderville, where we're building an arcade. This is something I was really on the fence about, honestly, but thanks to a lot of great feedback in the last episode where I built some Midway using the new arcade stuff from update number 9, I asked for references to sort of like higher budget theme parks using arcades, and you folks did not disappoint. Gave me lots of great references to look at. We'll talk about those more in a moment. There is something quite seminal coming up right now, and I want to tell you about it. One of the things I found that I was struggling with the arcade was they look great, and as I said before, I think the pieces were really good, but they weren't looking right. As I was placing them down, it was like, this isn't quite what I think of when I think of an arcade. So I spent a little time looking at some reference images of arcades I've been to and other arcades in other theme parks, and it finally clicked. These things come in banks. These things come in multiple units as one unit, if that makes sense. And it's such a little difference, but that's what made it happen. Here, look. See these signs? Boom. There was a cut there, and I finally downloaded the scaling mod because I remembered there's been these crazy pirate themed signs from Planet Coaster 1, and I was like, oh, these will be great for doing big, garish, over the top signage for this place, but they were still so huge, even scaled down to 50%. I don't know, like, no wonder we didn't use those much in Planet Coaster 1, as great as they were just so huge. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, right, that's it. I've been umming and ahhing about it forever. I'm going to go and get the scaling mod. So I now am playing with scaling mod. And honestly, it hasn't... I was a little worried about getting it because my worry was that I was just going to drag everything down to 5% and suddenly my piece count was going to explode. And honestly, it hasn't been that way. For the most part, everything I want to do, I'm still working within the confines of the in-game scaling measurements. But every now and again, it's just nice to be able to drag something just that little bit small, even down to like the 25% mark, you know, compared to the 50 that a lot of stuff goes to. It makes a big difference. There's little things like this where we can scale these down to match the in-game ones now. You know, just makes a lot of difference. I've been umming and ahhing about it for ages. I've been really trying to decide whether I want to do it or not, because obviously it does make the builds I do a little bit limited for other people who don't want to use mods or maybe are playing on console. And whilst I don't put that much stuff on the workshop, I know a lot of people watch me for sort of inspiration, and it sort of sounds a bit grandiose. Like I don't make these videos sitting there thinking, look at this incredible thing I've made, people. I've been gracious to share this with you. I don't really think about it like that. I just enjoy playing the game and want to share it. But I'm aware that a lot of people watch me to pull ideas from. It's why I watch a lot of other people, you know, to say, oh, that's a great use of that piece, or that's a really interesting way to solve that problem, etc. So I understand that starting to use mods like this does start to affect the usability of it, perhaps, or the attainability of it. But I will say this. The mods that are out and stable and on Nexus mods are fantastic. I've had no problem with them so far. Obviously, there can be issues with mods when updates come along, but it's simple enough to turn them on and off. It does come with a whole new set of issues, but I do think it really is worth it, and I think it is something that if you really want to take your game to the next level, it's a great this is a great one. And I'll be looking at some others soon as well, maybe do a little bit of an overview of them for like people like me who aren't the most tech savvy. Honestly, you know, like I muddle through this stuff, and I'm a bit of a kinesthetic learner, so I usually learn well watching somebody else do it or just muddling through it myself. But I have a habit of like figuring out how to use it, getting a bit obsessed with it for a week or two, learning all about how mods work, and then it all just goes out of my head when I stop sort of actively looking at them. It's like whenever I need to build a new computer, I always build my own computers, and when it's time to do it, I'll spend 3 months watching Linus Tech Tips and Paul's Hardware and all these channels, and I'll become obsessed with it, and I'll learn everything there is about computer building, and I'll build the computer, and then all of that goes out of my brain, and I forget all of it again until 5 years later when I'm doing it all over again. And that's kind of how it works with this. So I kind of want to document the process, show people how easy it is, because it is pretty simple to get this sort of stuff up and running. But yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was the huge pirate signage that works perfectly for this, which is a highly themed, high budget arcade. Really loved watching all of the arcade stuff come out for updates. It really did. Even though it wasn't the biggest update, it really just seemed to have put a fire in the belly of a lot of awesome creators. We've seen people coming out who haven't really made stuff very regularly recently. It was awesome to see some stuff from Ruble Trillions. It was awesome to see another video from Mass Bandit, and then all of the other folks who were putting out some awesome stuff on a regular. Rudy did some great stuff. Wix did some awesome stuff. Mr. Simside, Mrs. T-Rex, all the Mrs. and Mrs. There's some real great stuff out there with arcades, and I did my own stuff that I was quite happy with. Mineral did a really great overview of them, and just a lot of great stuff. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention you. I watched a lot. There's about 20 odd videos that I watched about arcades, and I really liked what a lot of people did. Although everybody, or most people, kind of went for, and that's probably because I follow a lot of fairly realistic builders, but most people went for that slightly past its sell by day, probably hasn't had much of an upgrade since the 80s kind of arcade. Mass Bandit, for instance, even built one that was like a replica of Aladdin's Cave or Aladdin's Castle, I think it was called. It was like a chain of these mall arcades that were sort of big in the States in the sort of 80s. I don't really think as a Brit we had anything like that, honestly, and it's weird because I kind of feel nostalgia towards that stuff, but it's sort of like secondhand nostalgia through 80s American movies, through watching things like The Goonies and Tron and all that kind of stuff. We got a lot of 80s culture from America into the UK around that time. And even then, like nostalgia bait stuff like Stranger Things and what have you since then as well. It's sort of like a second-hand nostalgia. When I think of arcades, as in the actual ones I went to go to as myself in the UK, they're actually grounded much further back than that. More the sort of the penny arcades of the boardwalks and the seaside. The piers and places like Bournemouth, like Weston-super-Mare, Blackpool, these sort of seaside towns that were popular holiday destinations before air travel became cheap and everyone started going to Spain instead. That's what I think of as an arcade, sort of very classic penny pushers, old-fashioned games and Midway. And then there was a sort of resurgence of them in the States, but we never really got that, I don't think. Unless I'm completely forgetting a chain of arcades in the UK, but I don't think that was a thing. The only other sort of experience I have with arcades are what you would call a modern arcade now, which is the sort of things that you will find alongside a bowling alley or in some theme parks and hotels and resorts and things like that. These incredibly oversized, over-themed, light-up bells whistling and whirring and screens flashing at you constantly. A lot of stuff that's very IP-heavy. Think of things like Dance Dance Revolution and those huge Mario Kart games and like giant versions of like Cut the Rope and Angry Birds and all those kind of things. That's, really when I think of an arcade now, that's the kind of thing I think of, because that's my only real experience of them, is either the pushing pennies into machines from the 60s in the UK, or those sort of very highly themed modern arcades. And I don't feel like anyone had a good look at either of those types of things. Mostly they went for that sort of 80s sort of nostalgia bait style arcade, which was awesome. So I wanted to try something a little bit different and also try and find something that works in Meanderville. And the only type of arcade I feel you would see in a high-budget park like Meanderville is this later type, where it's very modern, it's very refreshed. There's no sort of tokens. Instead, there usually you get a card that you can top up, which is what we're building right now. So rather than those classic like wood paneling coin machines for tokens, instead I wanted to build a touchscreen one that sort of flashes and whizzes and whirls at you. To tell you to come and buy these tokens, and it's they call them tokens, but it's actually just like a little NFT, no, not NFT. What's the word? I don't know. Chip, the little RFID chip. That's it. I can't remember. I've lost my acronyms. The RFID chips that sort of just update tokens, and then you can turn them in. It still has the gift store. It still has the prize counter, but you're not sort of sitting there feeding in paper tokens anymore. It's mostly a digital thing, and we have a few of those here. There's a chain of bowling alleys called Palisade that there's two of here in the city, and both of those have this kind of arcade attached to them. And the couple of sort of smaller theme parks we have nearby have them as well. And then, like I said, looking around and looking at references from people, there are quite a few around there. The Islands of Adventure, one of Universal's parks in Orlando, has an arcade as the exit to the Doctor Doom ride in Superhero Island, I think they call it, the sort of comic-style Marvel place. There's an arcade by The Mummy in Universal Studios. A lot of the Disney resorts have an arcade, not necessarily within the theme parks, but a lot of the Disney resorts have an arcade. So this is a little bit of a contention in just that, like, I kind of just wanted one in the park because I like using the new stuff that comes out for the game, and also I want to kind of support the game and be like, yes, look, this update is cool. They kind of nailed this one. They hit this out of the park, and I feel like I as a creator, I should be supporting them in doing this cool stuff. So maybe you wouldn't necessarily see this right in the middle of the park itself, but I feel like it's not out of the realms of possibility, and it makes sense to me as another option as the exit point of a ride rather than just another gift shop, because I feel like, really, let's be honest, these high-budget theme parks, they pretty much all, like every major ride has a gift shop. It all kind of sells the same stuff throughout the park, and there's a good chance that we end up building, half a dozen gift shops in this place. So I thought, well, how about we change that up using the new feature, showing it off in a slightly different light. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, that ended up being quite cerebral. I'm building a cool arcade. So yeah, really wanted to go for that highly themed, modern style of arcade game. We still end up putting some of the old-fashioned games in here just because it kind of fleshes the space out a little bit and they look cool. Again, there's just a little bit of a what's the word? When you have to sort of spread your... Oh man, I really can't think of the word. What am I trying to think of? Extension of disbelief. What is it? Something like that. You have to sort of, think, okay, this works. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. The first cup of coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. Yeah, it does have a price counter. We're grabbing the one from the original arcade that we did before there was arcades. This was the one that I built out of the gift shop stuff. A lot of that stuff still works here as filler. Again, there's awesome arcade machines on the workshop by Josh. They all still work great as filler. They only gave us 2 or 3 actual games, and sort of half a dozen skill games, physical games, I guess. So if you want to build a really big arcade that's really fleshed out, you're still going to want to sort of pad them out with other stuff. This is actually quite a small arcade here. Again, it's the sort of exit through the gift shop. One of the things I did on the screen, I made the screen for the tokens machine, and it sort of flashes and shows different things, and sometimes it says use these tokens in every arcade in the park. So there may well be that we do this again as another exit somewhere else, maybe. And I really wanted to see what the next DLC looks like, because I think it's going to be very sort of vaudeville, vintage, boardwalk style stuff, which doesn't really have a home in Meanderville, sort of as is. But I think it's going to be very useful for our steampunk/arcade punk area, Zephyrberg. So I've been really desperate to kind of jump into a new theme in Meanderville, but I've always sort of got that in the back of my mind. Well, what if the next DLC makes it easier? And now we have a pretty good idea that next DLC, the scenery that comes alongside it, does kind of look alike. A lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of wrought iron, a lot of filigree. All that kind of stuff that we can use really well in that sort of space. So that's probably where Meanderville ends up going for the next little while, is that we sort of cap off this pirate area and start working on Zephyrberg, because I think the next DLC is going to really help us there. I ended up building a couple of these things just because I kind of wanted to, not because this sort of stuff... There's, like I said before, Josh has some great stuff on the workshop. There's others as well. A lot of this sort of stuff already exists, but you're coming to me to see me build stuff, I feel. So I didn't want to just grab a load of stuff off the workshop and just plonk them down. And one of the things I couldn't see and I felt would really fit here, I've seen these a few times now in more modern arcades. They're like a water shooting game. So they have the sort of mechanism of the shooting the water into the clown's mouth to fill a balloon up or to make a ball rise or what have you. But the water is just shooting against what I assume is just a huge touchscreen. So you play a shooting game, but you use a jet of water, and it has this sort of weird patch of like astroturf where the water just can soak down down into the system to filter back through and go back through the gun. They're really crazy, and they're quite fun. I've played them with Xander a few times. It's usually like Plants vs. Zombies looking zombies, like cartoony zombies pulling through. What I did was just go and find some footage of an actual pirate shooting game. It just uses like a regular gun. I'm dating myself here by saying, like Time Crisis and like House of the Dead. I'm sure there's many new ones there that I don't know about, but those are the ones I remember growing up. I think it just uses a regular gun, but the footage kind of works just to kind of have some movement on the screen, and the logo above it as well is whatever the ride was called, Dread Legion or Dread Pirates or something. So that was fun to build. And then I think there's footage of it where I build a different kind of coin pusher that's a hexagonal, pentagonal I think it is, but a round shape. Again, all the ones I can find, they're using like a bank of machines in one go. It's not these sort of loose machines like the game's given us. I think how the update has gone is perfect, by the way. I think that's the right way to do it. Have them individual with very little signage, so that we can then sort of raise them up or gussy them up to make them look a lot more themed. I think that's exactly the way to go. Frontier of old would have had all of these machines have big King Coaster models on top spinning around. I say this as I add a big sign that spins around on top of this. So it's not that they don't exist and look like that, but I like the option of being able to make that if I want to. But the basic one itself is just basic and plain, and then therefore you can do the grimy 70s arcade that hasn't been touched since Pong came out. You can do that budget pier one that you see a black ball that's still got the laughing policeman in the corner, or you can theme it up and do something like this. I like the bare bones version that they give us to then make them look like this if we want to. I'd rather that than have them come out of the gate being very themed and only usable in certain places. So there's something to be said about still building these now fake. Now we have them in the game, but I just really enjoy the shape of these ones. They have them where they're built like this, and it's just one machine. I did ask in Bro Nation as to whether or not we could do this with real ones. I think Moomin did a good take of these using functional ones, but it makes a very big space because they obviously have a collision point. You can't cross them over. So I did ask in Bro Nation about whether or not any of the mods we have or any of the tricks, any of the taggy tricks we can have will make them overlap. It does look like it's possible with the mod called Free Build that isn't actually available regularly yet. I think you can go and, if you're really into mods and know what you're doing, you can go and do a beta version of it, but it isn't on Nexus yet. But it doesn't really look great when they cross over, and they do exactly as you would expect. They all sort of push into each other, and I don't think it's going to be something we can do. So instead I just kind of model up this one using some sort of fake coins and throw a few keyrings down, and the inside of it actually ends up being fairly plain because, again, I was a little at odds building this, thinking, well, why am I building this when we now have functional ones? This goes against everything I keep saying. I kind of, I plead for interactive things from the developers. It's kind of all I want them to make now is, yes, sure, some new rides will be great. I'm sure there's coasters that people are still desperate for, but personally, just give me functional stuff like this that people play with, and as soon as they do, I end up still making fake ones that they just wonder past. So I understand the sort of juxtaposition here, but I just really wanted to have a go at making, there it is, that one with the rotating. So you can see a couple of glamour shots here. I did put some farms in. Oh man, I didn't quite realize. I built a lot of this on pause. I didn't quite remember just how aggressive the wind is on these. I don't know if modders watch me. I maybe will go and mention this to them. I would love a checkbox on terrain, on trees that says, like, not affected by the wind shader. That would be so cool for some indoor spaces where I've got planting that it just does not make sense for them to move this much. But there you go. You can see some of the screens I made up there. The token screen in the corner there sort of flashing, and that's just built into a pill pusher, a coin pusher, so it sort of has people go over to it. Really happy with this. I think it's probably the last thing I'm going to do with arcades for a little while. We'll be moving on to something else now, but yeah, it was fun to put together. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Until the next one, Be good.